This past week, our nation marked Juneteenth. Juneteenth remembers a strange and painful truth. The Emancipation Proclamation had been signed more than 2 years earlier, yet many enslaved people in Texas remained enslaved because the news had not reached them, or because those in power chose not to tell them. Freedom had been declared, but freedom had not yet been lived. There is often a gap between what is true and our willingness or ability to live into it. Juneteenth reminds us that liberation is not only an announcement, it is a journey, a crossing over, a movement toward the freedom that has already been promised. There is something of that tension in both Jeremiah and Jesus today. Jeremiah knows what God has called him to say, but living into that truth is costly. And Jesus sends his disciples into the world knowing that they will encounter resistance, misunderstanding, and even division. The good news is not always easy news. The truth does not always arrive wrapped in a comfortable blanket. Sometimes the hardest part is not hearing the truth, but living into it. And yet neither Jeremiah nor Jesus tells us to give up. Instead, we are told, do not be afraid. 3 times in today's gospel, Jesus says, do not be afraid. Perhaps faith is learning to live in the space between a promise that has been spoken and a promise that is still unfolding. Whenever we stand at a threshold, whether it is personal transition, a congregational transition, or a national moment of remembrance like Juneteenth, we are faced with the same question: who will we be now? Jeremiah stands at such a threshold, as do the disciples. And perhaps St. Luke's stands at such a threshold as well. Whenever we stand at these places between what has been and what will be, fear naturally arrives, which may be why Jesus said 3 times, do not be afraid. Not because there's nothing to fear, but because fear is not meant to be our guide. These texts are about discernment. Discernment in the midst of inner conflict. Both Jeremiah and the disciples are discovering that faithfulness does not always feel peaceful. Sometimes it feels like being pulled apart. The task is to learn how to remain rooted in God while uncertainty is present. In the Matthew texts, Jesus says, I have not come to bring peace. I have come to bring a sword. And as soon as we hear that, we get this unsettling feeling. What does this mean? Is Jesus promoting violence? The sword Jesus speaks of is not a weapon for harming others. It is the sharp edge of truth. the edge that separates fear from faith, the edge that cuts through illusion and helps us see what is real, the edge of discernment that asks, what is God calling me towards now? Listen again to Jeremiah's honesty. "O Lord, you have enticed me. You have overpowered me. I have become a laughing stock." He is angry, he's weary, and he wants to quit, but he knows he can't. That call burns within him like a fire shut up in my bones. And anyone who has served a church, raised a family, cared for a loved one, worked for justice, or simply tried to live with integrity knows that feeling. We want to quit, we want to stop, but we just can't. Parts of us want that easier road, but parts of us know we cannot betray what our heart knows to be true. That is the struggle Jeremiah names, and perhaps that is the struggle many of us at St. Luke's know as well. The world feels increasingly loud. Every day brings another outrage or two or three, another crisis, another demand for our attention. And so, perhaps one of the practices available to us today is not speaking into that loudness. It is pausing, slowing down. It is creating enough silence to hear what is actually ours to do. Pause. Listen. Do not be afraid. Do not fear. 3 times Jesus says it. I've learned that whenever Scripture repeats something, it's a call for us to pay attention. This is what happens. This happens to be something that Jesus says often. Do not be afraid. Jesus knows fear will be present. Otherwise, he wouldn't need to say it. Notice that Jesus doesn't promise safety. He promises presence. That's not the same thing. He doesn't say nothing difficult is going to happen. He says, do not be afraid. We often want to feel strong before acting, feel like we're ready. But Scripture suggests another way. Perhaps courage is not the absence of fear. Perhaps courage is listening more deeply than our fear. Perhaps courage is remembering that God's presence is greater than whatever frightens us. The God who knows every sparrow, who counts every hair on our heads, is already with us. Bidden or not bidden, God is present. Psychologist Carl Jung had those words chiseled in Latin over the doorway of his home and on his gravestone. Whether invited or not, whether recognized or not, whether we feel certain or confused, whether we are arriving or departing, God is present. Whether we are prophets like Jeremiah and called to do the hard work, or disciples sent out by Jesus, called to go make disciples of others, God is present. As many of you know, my time with you all is drawing to a close. This is my next to the last Sunday among you, and transitions have a way of stirring up all kinds of feelings. There's excitement, uncertainty, gratitude, anxiety, hope, grief. Sometimes these feelings are all together, all meshed in, all at the same time. But this moment is also an invitation, not to rush ahead, not to cling to what has been, but to practice the pause, to listen, to trust, to notice where the Spirit is already at work among you. Before making a decision, before reacting to today's headlines, before responding to an email, before assuming we know what comes next, pause. Take a breath. And ask yourself, what is fear saying? And then ask yourself, what is love saying? If those words don't work, you can say, what is anxiety saying? And what is God saying? This becomes a way of interpreting the sword. It's not a weapon to be used against others. It's the capacity to distinguish between fear and wisdom. Jeremiah discovered that the call of God was stronger than his desire to run away. The disciples discovered that God's care was larger than their fear, and we are invited to discover the same. Not certainty, not perfect answers, but trust. Trusting that beneath all our questions, beneath every transition, beneath every fear about what comes next, God is already present. Bidden or not bidden, God is present. The one who knows the sparrows knows us. The one who called Jeremiah calls us. The one who sends the disciples sends us. The one who has been faithful in the past will continue to be faithful. So, dear friends, whatever comes next, pause, listen, discern, and do not be afraid. Bidden or not bidden, God is present.